Thank you for joining us today for The Connecting Place. Today we're going to ask the question or address the question or the plea, let me say, a plea from a wife listening who says, "Help, my husband thinks I'm crazy." Either there's some type of environmental issue where the wife is experiencing a lot of health issues, or the kids are, and she feels this weight, and the husband dismisses it. He thinks she's crazy. So I've brought my husband along. Thank you for being here, Chris.
Glad to be here, Andrea.
We'll get Chris's perspective, but I want to read to you from an article from Dr. Lisa Nagy, who is very well versed in this issue of toxic mold, environmental illness in general. She experienced her own toxic mold exposure, and she feels that mold and mycotoxins at home or work are the most unrecognized environmental exposures today. But she has an article on toxic mold in marriage, and I include this in my book, and I have it on my website, two websites, momsaware.org and It Takes Time. This article, Toxic Mold in Marriage by Dr. Lisa Nagy, but it's also in my book, Is Your House Making You Sick? But I want to read this as a place to start. This is her observation. When a male-female couple has been exposed to toxigenic mold, pesticides from tenting or spraying, or other chemicals such as formaldehyde in new kitchen cabinets, women often experience symptoms first and often different symptoms than men. They have classic chemical sensitivity symptoms. I'm exhausted, depressed, and sometimes frantic, but my husband doesn't find perfume, air fresheners, and the detergent aisle of the grocery store offensive. Yet he's mean and belligerent, is losing his memory, his balance, and has skin problems. But people think he's fine and that I'm the fruitcake. For this, the couple often separates. And this is our heart for this particular program, is to help couples work through this very divisive issue. Environmental illness causes huge rifts in relationships. And one person feels like they're crazy and another thinks they are crazy. And then family members think they're crazy. So I just want to assure anyone listening, this is a very real issue. Environmental illness, to me, it's the most obvious elephant in the room today. Our indoor environments can make us sick. So let's look at our own relationship, and we're going to get to when I really felt we needed to leave the house. But Chris, just talk generally about this. I was going through this sort of on my own, doing a lot of research, feeling like something's not right here.
Right. Well, and I would say we have experienced the opposite of this too, just so that we don't stereotype everybody. There have been cases where the husband will find something and the wife thinks he's crazy, so this is not universal, but this is what happened to us. And when you started, trying to figure this out, and mainly it was because the kids were getting sick and going to the doctor and the hospital and doing all this, and I was just kind of struggling to keep everything, all the plates spinning and provide, you were exhibiting some symptoms of the foggy brain and all the stuff that comes with the mold exposure and the chemical sensitivity and that kind of stuff. And so it did feel like, well, she's becoming obsessive. She's had this memory loss thing, and she wasn't there for the kids at the first grade mother-son tea, and that kind of thing. And so how can I trust her with this? She found something on the internet. You know how much stuff is on the internet? 9/11 never happened and all that kind of stuff. And so I start to look at this from, I've got to be the sane one here. I've got to be the grounded one here. I've got to be the one who keeps us moving forward and doesn't do something rash and dumb and stupid and financially, I have a tsunami. And so that's what's going through my mind as I watched you try to navigate and figure this out.
Now, I don't honestly remember. I'm thankful. I talk to so many couples where it's so divisive, and she's fully aware that he thinks she's crazy. I have to say, I didn't really pick that up from you.
Well, it's only in looking back, really, because as you're going through it, you're just kind of, you go through it. It's not like you see all of this and you process it. It's just like it's a thing that you navigate, and then you look back and say, well, I bet that was why I acted that way. Mm-hmm. But let me jump forward then to the place where you called me in Chicago. I had gone to a wedding for our friends who work in Chicago. And as I was flying back, just before I was flying back, I got a phone call on my cell phone, and it's Andrea, and she said, can you talk? And I said, sure. And I will never forget the gravity in your voice or the words that you said, I think we need to leave the house. And I took a deep breath, and I said, okay, well, why? And you explained who you had talked with that day, and I said, well, not knowing what to say here, I said, well, we'll do whatever we need to do. Mm-hmm. I think that's something,
yes.
Wasn't it?
Yeah. You said, I don't know, but you came back to there was a lot of skepticism, but ultimately I do remember you saying, well, remember we had been through so much. So I just think both of us were almost ready. And had we tried to do this any sooner, we might not have been.
I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to leave the house because I didn't see the sense of it, and I didn't see the the financial repercussions of it. First thing I thought about, and then I thought about the dogs. I thought about the pets. I thought about what do the kids do with school and how what we're going to do what, and then I on the plane ride home.
But wait a minute, before we get to you on the plane,
yeah, okay.
I still think it's remarkable that you said we'll do whatever we need to do. Where did that come from?
Well, it came from I want to love you well in this frantic, manic situation that you've come up against, and I want to affirm what you've just said, but we'll do whatever we need to do can mean a lot of different things, And so I was kind of hedging at that point and saying, well, this will get you to feel better and hang up, and then I can figure out what I'm going to do. And a lot from a man's perspective, from my perspective, I was thinking of, well, what is the least amount that I can do, the least invasive thing that we can do here to make you happy, or not just happy, but keep you appeased with the health of the family and all these things that are going on, because I don't want to lose that house. We got all of our savings in that house. We got all our memories in that house. We got pictures in that house. We got my books in there. I had a copy of Dean Koontz, How to Write Best-Selling Fiction, that sells for like $200 on Amazon. I got signed Pat Conroy books that I'll never get back if we leave that house. And so we'll do whatever we have to do. Was kind of, I don't say this proudly, patting you on the head and saying, okay, honey, just calm down. Everything's going to be all right. Okay. One more person in your life, just like the doctors have said to you, look, everything's going to be all right. Just take this pill, just have this surgery, just do this, just do that. And can I get the plane now?
Yes.
Okay. So I get on the plane, and I'm pretty exhausted for the things that have happened here, and then the exhaustion of you saying, we need to leave. I think we need to leave the house. And I started going through what I know as true and the questions of what is really important here and who is really important in my life. And is it the stuff? Is it the possessions? Is it the house? Or is it you and the kids? And I don't know if on the plane I thought of it, but I have talked with a lot of dads, a lot of husbands since then, and have used this analogy of the fire. Okay, if a fire happens, you wake up in the middle of the night and everybody's asleep but you, and you smell smoke, what do? Do you sit up and say, well, maybe it's not that bad? Or maybe it's just a faulty smoke detector that I'm hearing going off downstairs. Or, it's probably only going to need a fire extinguisher, and I can probably go back to sleep for a few minutes and let it get... No, you don't. You smell smoke, you get up, you get everybody, and you get them out. That's what you do. Because the people are more important than the stuff, and there's imminent danger. The problem with mold and the problem with toxic exposure like this is you can't see it. You can't smell smoke. You can smell mildew and, that kind of thing. But even that we dismissed. I think that was just my daughter who threw towels in the corner all these times. And she's not the cleanest person in the world. It must be, you just think of those things. But on the plane ride back, I started asking myself, what does it look like to love the people in your life more than the stuff? What does it look like to show love to somebody else who is in a panic and in a fearful mode? What is it like to elevate them over my desire for stability and financial, not going into financial ruin? Because we had spent all this money on the 2 remediations. Who in their right mind would spend tens of thousands of dollars and then leave? That's just, it's dumb. I know I'm going on and on here, Andrea, but you have to get into the mindset, though, of when we touched down we were flying from Chicago to Denver. When I touched down in Denver and then that ride back, I knew what I needed to do, and that was, if I'm going to love my wife well, I have to put her feelings and her desire here for safety for the kids above my clinging to financial stability or whatever you want to call it. And by the time I got there, and I think it was really God working in my heart, by the time I got there, I was ready to say, to back up what I'd said, we'll do whatever we need to do. And I went in the house and I put my briefcase down and I took off the new suit that I had bought recently and I hung that on the back of the chair, and I got my shorts and a T-shirt and I put my tennis shoes on and I walked out. And that was the beginning of the journey of saying, you are more important to me than this stuff back here.
It's interesting, then in the days that followed, we had a 2-hour conversation with a toxicologist and a mold specialist the next day saying, do we really need to do this? And in the days to come, it was interesting. I started to doubt, maybe we didn't need to do this. And you got stronger in it.
Yeah, because, and here's the other thing I tell to husbands and fathers. Let's say, if this is all a figment of her imagination and the toxicologists are wrong and there's nothing really wrong with his house, then when we find that out in a week or a month or however long it takes, we can say, look at all that money we wasted on this thing. We didn't need to do that, did we? But you will know, my wife will know, and my kids will know, I'll do anything. I'll do anything to show you that I love you and I care for you, and you are more important to me than all of this over here. And I think that's worth them hearing and finding out. And then conversely, worst case scenario, you get out of the house and then you find out, yeah, all of this stuff is connected. All of this stuff that you were exposed to is causing your kids to throw up and have vertigo and diplopia of the eyes, and your wife to have the memory loss, and all of that stuff is connected. The only thing that you will do in looking back is regret not getting out sooner. And that's what I regret, not getting out sooner from the house. So in those cases, the worst case scenario is you've spent a little money to show your family I care more about you than the stuff of my life.
And no wife comes to this without a lot of angst and pain. And yes, I'm really glad you brought up the fact that my brain was very compromised, which does add to the problem,
right?
Because I'm already feeling crazy. I can't remember why I walked into a room. I can't remember that appointment that I made for my child. I can't even, there's no clear thinking, which makes this a complete nightmare. And I want to emphasize that. You are not crazy. This is so hard. And so many times after this particular chapter of our journey happened, I would wish that we had had a fire. There are no decisions. Everybody understands. Everybody embraces you. Then you don't have to worry about, should I take used clothing from a friend? Because now I'm worried about everything being contaminated. There's just so many levels to this. But I really appreciate you sharing that from your heart, because this is our story. It's not everybody's story. And as you said, it can be reversed.
Right.
What we're addressing is when one person feels one way and another family member feels a different way. What do you do?
And not to try to get everybody in the extended family to understand, because they're probably not. And not going to. You got to take care of yourself. And I think that's one of the reasons why I got stronger, Andrea, was because I saw the level of impairment that you're going through. And I, as a husband, I didn't have the same level of mental stuff that was going on. For me, it was more physiological, intestinal. But that's where I could become, no, we're going to go through with this. We're going to keep going down this road, and we're going to see what is the truth here, because the truth is what will set you free. The truth is what will lead you to the good place where both of you are together and you can respond to what the truth is and not to what you're afraid of or not afraid of. So I think that's really important for the husband, if you are the stronger one mentally, to be able to say, no, here's what we're going to do. And that will give you a lot of comfort then as the mom, in your mom's heart.
Absolutely. And all the doubt just rose in after. I can't fathom that decision to leave. We had 6 kids. I was alone that weekend. Obviously, Chris was in Chicago, and I doled them out to different friends. I said, could you sleep over? And I didn't tell them even what I was thinking, because I didn't know. I just said, let me just think about this inside. I was like, but I just felt it was so intuitive. We've got to get out. And had I continued to think about it, I wouldn't have.
Yeah.
That sometimes it's just that step. Now, it's been more than 7 years since. I'm going to say how I look back on that, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, Chris, because I look back and I wouldn't go back if you paid me all the world, money in the world. There's psychologically alone. Let's forget about any of the mycotoxins, then the dead non-viable spores that are still toxic. Let's forget all that. Anytime you remediate a home, there's something left. It can be clean enough for somebody else, but for our bodies that were so sensitized to this, it was not a fit. But I wouldn't go back. It hasn't been easy. It didn't solve everything. All of our health issues didn't go away, but I look back at that and am just so grateful.
If you're offering me all the money in the world, I'll go back as long as you give me a hazmat suit, or go back and live in a tent in the yard. I look at it as the negative stuff in your life, the problems and the struggles that you have will either overwhelm you and cover you up, or you shake it off and you stand up on top of it. And I've learned so much from that experience that I feel the same way. I wouldn't want to live through it again. I wouldn't want to experience, or anybody else to experience. But there's so much that I learned about myself, about what I believe, about what I'm really depending on, who I'm really depending on, and what love looks like through that whole thing. Yeah, I wouldn't trade that experience, because it's done a lot of work in me and in our relationship too. Because now,
yes,
I'll do anything.
Yes, I do.
I'll do anything for you. I will love you in any way that I need to show you we're together here. And that's my prayer for anybody listening who has this rift in the relationship, especially if you're the husband listening to this. How much are you willing to go through to show your wife that you love her? And I didn't do this all perfectly. I'm not, you don't have to do it perfectly. She just has to know, he'd do anything for me. Mm-hmm. And I think most men would say, somebody breaks in, to the house. I'd lay down my life. I'd get, if I have a firearm, I'd go after him. If I got a baseball bat, I'd stand in front of my kids and some intruder. I'd lay down in front of a tank. I'd do anything like this. And yet, if she's saying, I think this environment is hurting us, and I feel like we need to get away from this, that's a different scenario of showing love. And the question is, will you say, yes, I'll go down this road with you because I care more about you than I do this stuff?
Well, thank you for sharing your heart, and thanks to our listeners for joining us for The Connecting Place.